Hey, my name is Jeff Duvall, and I'm the founder of a nonprofit called Student Reach. And if you're watching this video, it's probably because you're wondering about how it works when you donate stuff to a nonprofit. Okay, we call those in-kind donations, and in-kind donations are any kind of donation that has a monetary value but isn't actual money. Okay, so it's not cash, check, credit card, wire transfer. Now, these do have actual monetary value, and they usually include things like cars, that's the most common thing, but boats, real estates, collectibles, aircrafts, all kinds of things that have value can be donated, okay? That means even Bitcoin, negotiable bonds, stocks, other financial instruments, musical instruments, electronics, art collections, comic book collections. I have a friend who does a lot of that. So yes, all of those things can be donated for a tax donation for you, but there are several considerations that you have to make when you're donating those things. And just right off the bat, I want to tell you, yes, we have experts that can get the real value of your donation. And it matters who you donate to, because you may or may not get a great tax deduction or even everything that you're entitled to if the organization isn't good at working with that kind of donation. Now, obviously, working with this kind of donation is a lot more complex than just making a monetary donation, but certain organizations are very good at this and some aren't as good, okay? It can be a win-win for you and the organization, an organization like ours, but you have to get it right. And here's kind of a brief summary of how this process works. What we do with your donation. The first thing we can do is we can use it. Sometimes we put donated items in service for our use. That means vans to tote students around or computers that we can actually use. Those are the kinds of things that we use and we put them into service. Number two, we could give it away. Sometimes people need those kinds of things. For instance, computers, laptop computers, we give those to a lot of students here and around the world, in Zambia, in Nicaragua, in Baja California. So that's that kind of thing. We might also make a gift of a car or clothing, for instance. Another thing that we can do is we can sell it to support our mission. Now, some items might be more useful if they provide money for the services we provide. We might not need a boat, but we could use that money from the boat to run programs. And we, for instance, work with at-risk students from low-income neighborhoods, and we help them with mentoring and job training, anti-suicide programs, anti-exploitation programs. Spoken to more than 1 million students about how to help their friends not get involved in being exploited in things like sex trafficking, okay? And we fund all of that using money from things that we sell in addition to other kinds of donations. What kind of donation will you get? Well, the IRS guidelines provide for you to get a donation for the fair market value. And the fair market value, or in the trade we say the FMV, that might be difficult to determine, but the 4 following factors are useful. One is obviously the cost or the selling price. What would it cost to replace an item? Okay, not when it was new, but what would it cost to replace it now? Or what could you sell it for right now? And that can be pretty easy to determine, but sometimes it's more complicated. So you can look at the sales of comparable items. You might be able to go on eBay, for instance, and look at used items and decide pretty quickly, well, if 100 laptops have sold for this amount of money, then that's what it's worth. It's also relatively simple with something like a car because of things like Blue Book value or real estate, because of appraisals that are readily available pretty quickly and relatively inexpensive. Now, it can be a lot more complex with other kinds of donations, however. Another thing that you could use is replacement costs, okay? So this is pretty easy to figure out, but it's difficult when it's things that rapidly decline in price, you know? So you gotta figure those kinds of things out and really figure out what would it cost to replace something. And the last one is an appraisal, an opinion of an expert. It doesn't have to be exactly an appraisal, but it could be somebody who decides on the value that they'd be willing to mark down, that they've seen this kind of thing before, they deal with it on a regular basis, and they know what it's worth. Now, as you might imagine, there's a couple IRS publications that you can look at. And if you want to, they're available on our website. The first one is publication 4302. I know that sounds intimidating, right? But publication 4302. But it explains specifically how vehicle donations work, since that's the majority of in-kind donations. And basically, it says that you get the donation when the organization sells the donated vehicle and uses the proceeds exclusively for its charitable programs. So you got to make sure they're doing that. Regularly uses the vehicle, okay? So they just put it into service for what they're doing for a significant period of time, or sells the vehicle after it fixes it up. Maybe you give them a clunker, they fix it up, and then they sell it. They can do that and you still get the tax donation, okay? Or they can actually give things away at a significantly lower price, okay? So you might wanna say, we're not gonna give away this car, but if somebody qualifies, we'll have buyer assistance, and maybe somebody can buy a car for $1,000 that would have cost $2,000 on the regular market. The same thing can be done with laptop computers as a way to not only offset, but make sure that there's some skin in the game and that somebody really needs it. The second publication is 561. Again, you can just go on and click on our website at studentreach.org, go to /donations, and then hit any of those buttons along there, and they have these publications that you can find easily, okay? So, and it explains how to determine the value of donations that of all different kinds, and it gets a little squishy. But don't worry, not only are we good at this, but we've got a lot of experts that we have access to, and all you have to do is call us. Our phone number is 707-333-9089, and you'll talk to a nice young lady named Tanya who will answer the phone. Also, you can use our contact form right there on our website at studentreach.org, and we will get back to you very quickly. Believe me, when you hit us up and say we want to give you our car, we get back to you really quickly. And so those are things that you can do to contact us. And by the way, I just want to note really quickly that we are not a tax expert, and that the information that we give in this video is just sort of a brief summary, and you should really look at those publications for yourself. For legal reasons, you could talk to your CPA or some other tax professional, okay? Now, here's the last question. Who should you give to? I think when it comes to giving gifts in kind to organizations, there's 4 kinds of organizations. The first one I wouldn't mess with, and these are third-party, for-profit companies that maybe kind of pretend to be a nonprofit, but they don't really do much, or they're technically a nonprofit, but they don't really do much of anything, or they will take in donations and give a very small amount to other nonprofits that are actually doing something, okay? These organizations spend most of their money to the staff that deal with your donations. They have a lot of expertise in taking in your donations. Don't worry about that. They will pick up that car like that, running or not, same day usually. They're good at all those kind of things, but they don't actually do much, okay? If you don't care about that, that's fine. The second kind is giant organizations that can really handle your donation well because they have contracts with other companies that do it, but they're not really gonna feel it very much. You might have heard jingles for Cars for Kids. They've got that annoying jingle, and they run hundreds of thousands of dollars in ads. Just the Google search term alone, car donation, costs $100 every time you click on their ad, okay? So think about that, all the ads on the radio and podcast. Now, they do some real work, but what they do is kind of limited. And if you look into their focus, they help low-income Jewish families with private Jewish school tuition, summer camp. They have a few other things they do, but that's their focus if you look them up on the web. But here's the other thing about that. Whether it's Cars for Kids or it's United Way or some of these other organizations, they are barely going to feel a donation of a couple $1,000s, even $10,000, even $30,000. You don't tick the needle and really kind of expand what they're doing until you hit big time dollars. Now, the last kind of organization you might want to give to, I would say, is a small or medium-sized nonprofit. And these are usually have low overhead. These are people that everyone has multiple jobs and they really appreciate your donation. When you give a $2,000 car, that makes a difference. That might make a difference between somebody not getting a pay deduction in times like COVID. But small and medium nonprofits might not be able to handle your donation very well, especially when it's something complicated like a jet or financial instruments. So make sure that they can handle it, and make sure that they can handle it quickly, at least on your time frame. So listen, I think my organization, Student Reach, is a perfect example of one of those Goldilocks organizations. It's not too big, not too small. We can handle complicated donations, and we're really in a sweet spot, but we really feel it when you donate money. We have low overhead, so when you give money, it goes to really helping people. And you know, when you think about the kind of mission of the organization that you are wanting to donate to, it really matters. For instance, with Student Reach, we provide mentoring for low-income and underserved minority communities. We do anti-suicide programs and anti-human trafficking programs for exploited communities, and we've done it all over the nation. We bring students around the world, many of them who would never be able to go on a trip like this, to volunteer to help people living in extreme poverty with things like water and housing and education. But we still have the ability to deal with your donation. We're really good at it. If you donate a plane, yes, we can get out there right away. If you want to donate a car, we can take care of that donation in most cases. If you want to donate a laptop computer, yes, send it in, we'll fix it up, you'll get your donation, and we'll get it out. So reach out, get back to us. You can go on our website again, and you can look at our phone number or use our contact form, and we'll get right back to you. And even if it's not because you want to donate to us, but you just have questions about what we do or about another organization, we may or may not know that organization, and we might be able to help you decide if that is a good donation to make or not. Don't worry, we won't try to talk you out of it because it's not us. So we want to say this to you though. Thanks for being awesome. Thanks for considering donating in this great time of need. Thanks for being generous, because your generosity and the generosity of people like you is what makes organizations that do good really successful in doing good. Keep being awesome. I know you can be more awesome than you already are.